Sometimes you swear that if you just had sex one more time, all the problems would be solved. We all know that a lack of sex in a marriage is an all too common problem. So much so that it's a joke, literally.
There's no sex, man. I had no idea that marriage just means no sex. No, none, none. I have friends that are thinking of getting married and they say funny like, hey, you know, I don't know if I could do it because I don't know if I could have sex with one woman for the rest of my life. I'm like, don't worry about that. You're gonna have sex with 0 women for the rest of your life. That's a lot less than 1.
Can a man even reprogram his wife's mind to attract her again once it's lost? And what are the actual chances to get the passion, chemistry, and intimacy back when she already wants out? It seems impossible nowadays when wives get messages like this online when they are going through a divorce or separation.
Girl, you gotta remember who the you are. Your divorce doesn't define you. And what other people think about you or say about you, that doesn't define you either.
So, a mentor of mine once told me, you should always marry your second husband first.
Now, I want you to have a vibrant, overly active, and fulfilling sex life. So in this video, I'm gonna lay out how to give more sex with your wife. Notice how I said give and not have. You'll see why I chose that language in a bit. This video is not about telling you to take her on more dates or try to swoon her. That is like me telling you just the punchline to a joke, expecting you to laugh. There's no setup. I wanna show you that it's not so much what you do to have sex with her, but rather what you choose to stop doing that allows for a connection emotionally and physically to take place. In the next few minutes, I'm gonna show you 3 steps you can take more consistently that turn her on more and make her open up to you and desire you again. So let's jump in. Now I'm gonna give you plenty of phrases and techniques to make her desire you more like crazy, but none of that will matter if you don't start here first. There was a famous live poll that took place at this conference. Actually, it was Dr. Gottman's, right? There was hundreds of men and women, and the Gottmans wanted to do a little experiment. So they asked the men first, guys, raise your hand if in the last year you were terrified for your life. Only about 25% of the room raised their hand, I believe, if I remember correctly. They said, okay, what about the last 6 months, 3 months, last week? By the time they got down to the last week, there was like 1 or 2 hands left. They then did the same thing with all the women. Pretty much 100% of the women said within the last year they were terrified for their life at least once. When they got down to 1 week ago, being terrified for their life, still like 80% of the room still said yes. Now what this goes to show is that women have a higher sense of fear and vulnerability in this world. I want you to imagine for a second there was this other species, this other gender, if you will. I know that's kind of controversial, but just follow me. Let's say this alien species came down and they were bigger and stronger than us men and they wanted to mate with us. And the future of our survival depended on mating with this other species. Think of the dynamic that would play out a little bit, okay? This is how women feel all the time, right? Now, for the most part, most men are nice and women are protected and safe in our modern world. But there's still that evolutionary fear of the unknown, right? They have to be alert and aware. Walking home at night from the grocery store to their car in an empty parking lot, women think like, what if some guy's gonna come snatch me? They think about this where most men don't. Now let's take that base fear, that women have a higher sense of fear, and then add sex into the equation, right? For a woman, sex is more vulnerable. They're receiving you, they're opening themselves up, okay? And it's vulnerable, like the feeling of just like vulnerability, right? And so they have to feel completely safe with the person that they're opening up to. And for most men, they think, well, you know, she's my wife and we've had sex before and we had sex last week, but if the previous week or 2 months or whatever the case may be, you haven't been attentive to her, right? You haven't been listening to her. You haven't been a man of your word. You've been irresponsible. You've blown up with her on a couple times during fights and conversations. She doesn't feel safe with you. Despite all the good things that you've done, there is a sense of lack of safety associated with you. Therefore, she doesn't want to open up. Now, there is one technique that you can use to increase the amount of safety you have with her. It's called attunement. Now, the Gottmans talk about this. Attunement is that sense of just seeing that person fully and not inserting who you are or your narrative or your story, just like completely giving validation and listening, full attention with no desire or outcome in mind from the person listening. Let me give you some examples when you didn't attune when you should have. Let's say the last time she called you and you answered like this. Oh, really? Oh, that's awful. Yeah, I'll get dinner. Yeah, for sure. What was that? I wasn't listening. Right? Lack of attunement. Even if she didn't complain in that moment, she feels the lack of presence. Or the last time you guys did get in an argument with each other, did you raise your voice? Even if you know you're not going to physically hit her, which I know you won't, gesturing and getting louder it scares her. There are so many other countless examples that I'm sure you could think of, but I want to give you an analogy that just really makes sense. Okay, if sex and physical connection are the fruit, right? You have to water it successfully, give her the right nutrients and sunlight in order for those fruit to bear. But the soil that you put the plant in, that is the foundation of your guys' physical connection, that is the attunement and the safety that she feels with you, right? The stable base. And trying to take her on dates by giving her extra water or taking her on a trip somewhere with the sunlight, if there's no rich, safe attunement in the soil, there's going to be no fruit. And I want to give you the most powerful concept that I've learned in my career that leads to more safety with her. And it is your congruence. A common point of confusion with a lot of men who first come into our program is they say, Josh, my wife said that she can't trust me or that I'm controlling. Yet I've never cheated on her. I've never physically hit her. I've never done anything to manipulate her or give her an ultimatum. I don't understand. You see, we think of a breaking of trust as a betrayal against boundaries. And that is true. But there is a deeper betrayal that you're not realizing that causes her to make those accusations at you. And it's a betrayal of yourself through incongruency. Now, congruency is the idea that your beliefs and values and habits all align, or even that your beliefs, emotions, and actions are all in straight alignment. Anytime you come out of alignment, in that the man you're presenting as is not consistent with the actions you show, or the words you say of things you're going to do, then later you change. That leads to incongruency and a lack of trust and a lack of safety. Let's say early on you say that you're a Christian and you're practicing that way. You go to church, you serve God, and with that comes a bunch of values like temperance, gratitude, and a non-judgmental attitude. And your wife loves that about you. And then as time goes on, she catches you over the years, constantly complaining, judging others, and diving head deep into a six-pack every single night. And you pick up smoking. So when she sees you doing those things, heavy incongruence comes up in her and she complains. Let's do one more. Let's say you shared with her your dreams of owning a business one day, to have financial freedom, and she loved that ambition in you, turned her on, okay? 20 years later, you're in the same job and you didn't go for your dreams. She intuitively knows that you are betraying yourself in that moment. This makes her not feel safe because a lack of congruence equals unpredictability, and unpredictability equals a lack of safety, which is no respect, which is no sex. So right now, what I want you to do, identify where you have been incongruent. Has there been a theme in your lack of consistency in who you say you are and your actions? Be honest and ruthless with yourself. This honest vulnerability, I don't care, like get your ego out of the way and just be, I know it's gonna hurt to admit these things, but she's pointing out these gifts in you to improve yourself. So start to see it that way. I remember being on a group call with one of the guys and he first came into the program and he was panicking. So I know that most times he won't be like this, but he was doing a role play with me and him in front of everyone. And I was playing the role of his wife and I was challenging him, being difficult, giving him nonverbal like disgust, right? Which was really hard for him to deal with. It's a lot harder than you think. And he was talking a mile a minute, he was stuttering his words, he was being jittery, and he was just panicking. So I told him, hey, let's take a deep break, right? Deep breath, deep break. Let's try to slow down. You see, when you talk to your wife, she picks up on these subconsciously, these subtle nonverbal cues that you have. And I wish I could, use Neuralink and just like a little earbud and see it through your eyes so I can give you the words to say to her. But I would recognize that a lot of the times when you are nervous, naturally, you're gonna wanna speed things up. Your brain just is working faster. That's what anxiety does. But you can consciously slow down when you're speaking with her, okay? You can use slower gestures. You can use a deeper tonality. You can hold eye contact longer and you can relax, okay? A researcher named Fiona at the University of Dundee actually did a study on measuring the stress levels of men and how those women in the study as well, how they perceive the men's attractiveness levels strictly on the amount of stress that they had. To no surprise, the guys that had higher levels of stress were perceived as far less attractive than the guys who had lower levels of stress. And one of the best ways to convey a lack of stress is to relax, slow down, right? Not feel like you have to get somewhere or do something or achieve some outcome with her. Everything is okay. After you make her feel safe, you have more congruence in who you are as a man. You are slowing down in your speech, in your movements, in your body posture, opening up. Then you can use polarity to go in for the connection. We talk a lot on the channel about masculine to feminine polarity. For a lot of men, their wife has become masculine, taken the lead because they have become feminine and taken a backseat and become complacent. So I'm gonna go over the top 3 mistakes that men are making that are preventing them being their most masculine self. Number 1, they're not leading. right? Now, I know wives generally over time, they'll take the wheel and they'll start leading themselves. But a lot of guys have to recognize it's because they stopped taking and making decisions, right? They're the ones that stopped leading. So she felt like she had, in order to survive, she had to take the wheel. She had to take over. Just because she chooses to do it doesn't mean she wants to. And I know a lot of guys say, my wife's a type A, or she has a business. You don't know my wife, Josh. Fine. In some contexts, yes, she does lead more successfully. But it is your job when she comes into the relationship in the home with you, that you are the leader. You're making more decisions for her. You are choosing where to go and what to do. You're still taking into consideration what she's doing. This does not mean being a dictator, right? Effectively leading means you make a choice, but you're open still to discussion. The second biggest mistake that a lot of guys will make is that they stop going towards things that scare them. Now, fear is a compass, right? And growth is on the other side of fear. And you've found a lot of things, if you look back at your life, a lot of the biggest points of growth that you've had in developing who you were as a man, you were doing things that scared you, right? Even walking up to her, asking her on a date, or, asking to marry her. These are all things, of course, that you led, but also were probably scary for a lot of guys, okay? But on the other side of fear is that growth, is becoming that man that she does look up to, right? I want you to pause the video right now, or even make a commitment down below in the comments saying, I'm afraid of this and I'm going to do this. Make a commitment. When you put something down on paper or on a comment down below in a YouTube video, you are 35% more likely to achieve that thing just by typing it out. The last thing that's going to lead to more of that masculine leadership that she is just drawn to naturally is to own your life. Now, this is something that I personally struggle with at times, knowing the right decision to make, right? There are two types of men in this world, according to Napoleon Hill in the book Outwitting the Devil. There are drifters and non-drifters. A drifter is the person who is just waiting for other people to lead, doesn't know what he wants to do with his life, is taking the easiest path, never takes time to think, what do I actually want from this life? Who do I want to be? They don't spend time actually imagining the life they want to live. They're just going from one day to the next. And they look back at the previous 10, 15, 20 years of their life and they say, what happened? What did I do? I didn't do much. Yeah, okay, I did these things, but am I living life to its fullest? And so one technique that you can use that is immensely powerful, that I wish I did more successfully and consistently, that I'm probably gonna do after this video. So thank you for bringing it up, Josh. What I'm gonna do is, you want to imagine yourself on your deathbed, okay? Whatever age that you choose that you're going to die in that time period. And I want you to have imaginary conversation with your grandkid. Maybe you have a grandkid yourself. And your grandchild's gonna say, name, Grandpa, what do you regret in life? And I want you just to let yourself say whatever it is in that moment that you regretted not doing, living your life to its fullest. And then I want you to take one step starting today toward that thing. Take one step toward living that more full life, okay? Finding your purpose is not an easy task, and it's constantly transforming day by day. You've achieved so much in your life already, and have gratitude for the things that you've achieved and how far you've come. But right now there's like a little dip in your life, but the darkest is before the dawn, and it's dark right now for you. But you can choose to stay in that darkness and not learn. You can get bitter or you can get better. And I want you to be a better man. And so look for those who have the answer, who have been on the same path as you. Learn from them, take action, go toward that fear. And on the other side, you'll transform into a man that you look back on with so much admiration. While you're on that deathbed, you'll look at your granddaughter and say, nothing. Thanks for watching.